After almost 6 years in office, Eric Holder announced he is stepping down from his post as America's top law enforcement officer. Holder is the nation's first black attorney general, and he was a champion of voting rights and gay rights. But some on the right say his legacy is marred by a number of scandals during his time in office. Joining us now, rising conservative leader Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, I want to play for you how Holder defined his mission as Attorney General. Here it is.
I have loved the Department of Justice ever since as a young boy. I watched Robert Kennedy prove during the Civil Rights Movement how the department can and must always be a force for that which is right.
How well do you think Holder lived up to that during his 6 years as Attorney General, as a force for right?
Well, you know, I've had the opportunity to become acquainted with him even many years before he became Attorney General. He's a very intelligent and winning personality. However, the position of Attorney General is supposed to be a blinded position. That's why Liberty symbol has a blindfold on. And he happens to be, in my opinion, very, very partisan with an agenda. So his legacy will be that of an Attorney General who brings an agenda to what is supposed to be an office where people are blinded.
The Reverend Al Sharpton says that he's reaching out to the White House to give them advice on who Holder's successor should be. And in fact, Sharpton was also the point person for the White House during the Ferguson riots. Do you think that President Obama should be listening to Al Sharpton?
I think he probably should listen to a wide variety of people. He shouldn't have a select group, and you need to hear opinions from everyone, but recognize that the position of Attorney General is supposed to be a nonpartisan position, and it's supposed to be the highest authority with reference to what is legal and not legal in our nation, and it's supposed to enforce things in an objective way. So that means you need to have everyone's input and not just a particular ideological group.
In his UN speech this week, President Obama made a comparison that some people have questioned. I want to play it for you.
In a summer marked by instability in the Middle East and Eastern Europe, I know the world also took notice of the small American city of Ferguson, Missouri, where a young man was killed and a community was divided.
Dr. Carson, what do you make of the president, in some sense, drawing a parallel between the ISIS actions, the beheading of innocents, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, in his effort to say that we're all not perfect, then also linking to that in some way what happened in Ferguson, Missouri? What do you make of that?
Well, I think everybody knows that we're not perfect, and I don't think that that was an appropriate use of such a tragic event. I would much prefer him use what happened in Ferguson, Missouri to talk about the underlying social problems that are creating so many Michael Browns who are destined to run into the law or run into other people in their community who may kill them. We need to be addressing those because we need all of those people. We need their talent. We can't be throwing them away.
When you say the underlying social problems, briefly, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about raising children in an environment where frequently there is no father figure or authority figure, to teach them how to relate to authority, to teach them the whole concept of personal responsibility. We're talking about an environment where we've removed a lot of the morals and values that used to dictate how people lived, and we're allowing them to gain their moral compass from the streets. That's not a place that's likely to lead to elevation.
You are thinking about running for president in 2016, and I want to talk to you about that in a moment, but it has brought attention back to some of your comments, as it does to any candidate potentially running for president. You said recently that you thought that there might not actually be elections in 2016 because of widespread anarchy. Do you really believe that?
Well, I hope that that's not going to be the case, but certainly there is the potential, because you have to recognize that we have a rapidly increasing national debt, a very unstable financial foundation, and you have all of these things going on like the ISIS crisis that could very rapidly change things that are going on in our nation. And unless we begin to deal with these things in a comprehensive way and in a logical way, there is no telling what could happen in just a matter of a couple of years. And particularly in a situation where we have a Senate and a Senate leader who has over 300 bills sitting on his desk, will not bring them to the floor for a vote, thereby thwarting the will of the people. And this country was supposed to be a country where the government conformed to the will of the people, not the people conformed to the will of the government.
Let me pick up on that, because, and talk specifically about a candidacy. You say, and this is your quote, the likelihood is strong that you will run for president in 2016. Do you really want to spend the next 2 years begging people for money, shaking hands, eating a lot of bad meals, when I think you would agree, at best, you are a distinct long shot?
Well, let me put it this way. It would be much more pleasant to put my feet up, to relax. You know, I've made plenty of money. I can live a very comfortable life, and that would be my preference. However, given the state of our nation, looking at what's going on, and understanding that sometimes we're called to do things that we don't want to do because we have to do them. And we look at the future of our children, our grandchildren, all the people who come behind us. If we all run for the hills, if we all run for the most comfortable place and just allow whatever to happen, then we get what we deserve.
I have about a minute left. I'm going to be transparent here. You and I are friends. I have great regard for you, and we have had this question that I'm about to ask you we've talked about in private. But after looking at Barack Obama and what's happened with his lack of political experience over these last 6 years, wouldn't putting Ben Carson in the Oval Office be akin to putting a politician in an operating room and having him perform one of your brain surgeries?
I don't think so. I think what is required for leadership is wisdom and the ability to assemble an appropriate team, ability to listen, and an ability to make wise decisions. And we also have to recognize what I said a little bit earlier. Our system was designed by our founders with the people in mind, and with the will of the people in mind, not with the will of the government. If you want the will of the government, yes, you need people who spend their whole lives in politics. And they are people who are much more likely to be able to impose the will of the government. But I don't think that that's what we need. And Jefferson said, when things got so bad, the people would actually make a correction. I think it's time to make that correction now.
Ben Carson, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.